Welcome back to the Figma Bootcamp. I'm Eoin, and in the last video, we explored Figma's interface to get comfortable with where everything lives. Today, we're taking the next step, learning the essential tools that will form the foundation of everything you create in Figma. You can think of these basic tools as your design vocabulary. Once you understand them, you'll be able to express increasingly complex ideas. We'll focus on frames, shapes, and text today, the building blocks of everything you will do. So let's go back into the file and start by taking a look at the tool panels, which we looked at earlier. We have the move tool, the frame tool, shape, pen tool, not for today, text, comments, and actions. Let's start with the frame. We already created frames here quickly in the previous video. So let's create a new page for frame specifically. If you tap the F key on your keyboard, you will have access to the frame tool, or you can just click that button right there. This will give you access to preset frames or frame sizes, which if you want to create an app, you will use an iPhone frame. If your goal was to create a desktop app or website, you might use a desktop frame. Here is the base of a frame. As you can see, when it's selected, the inspector has different properties compared to a rectangle or to nothing selected. A frame can have different sizes, different appearance, and can be filled with multiple layers of colors or images. You can have a white background followed by an image, a gradient, something else. That's up to you. Let's do something red so that we have a bit of a salmon color in the background. This can also take a stroke. Stroke are borders. I never know why it's called stroke, but it's called stroke in Figma. And right now you have multiple options. Let me make that red and let's make that 24 pixels so it's really visible. As you can see, the stroke or border is currently inset or inside from the selection do line right there. You can decide to make it outside or centered. As you can see, every time you hover one of the options, Figma automatically changes it so that you can see how it behaves. Keep it inside for now. One thing to note, in code, a border will always be outside of the frame and it's also calculated inside of the total size of the element. So when your dev is going to take this element and click on it, for example, they will see 852. In reality, in order to get 852 with the border, it is technically 852 minus 24 at the top and 24 at the bottom for them. So keep that in mind when you are building things and make sure that you understand that things will change from the dev perspective because of that. Frame also provide a very important tool, which is constraints. So if you have something inside of a frame, let's say a rectangle, so shape is here, I can just click and drag to define a rectangle. As you can see, my position is showcasing different values. I have left and top, which is translated into top and left right here. These are my anchors or my constraints. If I decided to have left and right, these are anchored around here. This is because when we have an element that has constraint based on the frame, if the frame is resized, also this is not really visible, let me change that to black, way more visible. If the frame is resized, it keeps its position and its values of anchors distance. So if I had this, for example, it would be keeping that distance from here to here, which you can check by pressing the Option key or the Alt key right there. So 107. If that frame is resized smaller, it's still going to be 107. So to go over some of the rest of the features that are available inside of Figma, let me just change this around here. The stroke and effects are going to be applicable to any type of elements. So we're going to use that rectangle for now to help. Right now we have seen the fill and stroke. Let's add an effect to this element. If you just click on it, it will add a drop shadow, which is not a very good drop shadow, but it's there and it's an option. You can change the value y, which is the distance from the element to the bottom of the shadow. This basically implies the distance from the element from the floor. You can think of the frame as the floor of your design. And then the blur is the amount of smoothness or softness of your shadow. So if you had like a very low shadow with a very big blur, you have something that is very smooth and very high compared to the floor. This is one of the effects. You have inner shadows, which are the inverse. You have layer blurs to obviously blur the layer, and you have background blur, which is something that is a bit popular right now for the glass effect, but that's for a bit later in the videos. So these are the effects and color choices that you can have. You can stack multiple fills, tag multiple fill color, but you cannot stack multiple stroke sizes. Moving on to shapes, we have done rectangles. Inside of here, we have way more shapes. Line and arrows are basically the same thing. Ellipse are circles or ovals. Polygons and stars are really useful. We're going to focus on ellipse, polygon, and star because they have hidden tricks that most people don't know about. Let's do an ellipse. To click and drag, it's going to be, it's not going to be a perfect circle. If you press the shift key, it's going to focus that into making a perfect circle. You can also just click. You get a shape of 100 by 100 in no time. Let's put that in red so that makes sense. Do the same thing with polygon, right there. And the last one, stars, right there. Everything is 100 by 100. None of them are aligned. Really good. One of the things that I want to showcase on this specific element for shapes is while I'm selecting an element like the ellipse or the polygon or the star, you can see that some dots are appearing based on the shape. We have 1 here, 2 here, 3 here. This one is called the arc tool. When we click on this, look at the inspector panel on the right side right here. Some new features happen to show, and that is a very useful tool to make us create donut charts, pie charts, or graphs. But I just said donut charts. That's the inner point. This will give us the ability to create like a donut shape and organize its graphs, percentage, everything, and you can stack them on top of each other with different starting point. This is really useful and most people don't know about. It's the same thing around here. We have 2 for the amount of count for the points, and we have 1 for the radius. So if we wanted like something like this, we could. No point in the center though. And then on that one, we have 3, which is the amount of points, the distance in between the points and inside corner, inside angle, and then the radius for everything. Very much the same thing every time, but this is really useful if you wanted to create like a verified badge for Twitter, for example. Lastly, we're going to talk about text, which is really simple. You have the text tool right here. You can also press the T key on your keyboard, and on click will create just cursor right there, and you can type whatever you want. By default, the text tool is using the last used text values. Right now, I'm using Inter, which is one of the font that is available, but I could go in there and look for SF Pro, which is the by Apple for design of interfaces. In the right panels, we have a lot of settings for the fonts. The font family, SF Pro, the font weight, regular, the font sizes, 12, and then the line height currently set to auto, and the kerning or the space between letters currently set to 0%. You also have the alignment section. The justify options are currently set to left, but you can center. And then you also have this tool right here, which gives you access to more details about the font that is currently selected. If the font is a viable font, you will have access to this tab. If it's not, it will not be there. Viable fonts give you a more granular settings for everything in the font in terms of weight or spacing, and that is a bit more advanced. So let's stay here for now. Simply using this as the base, we have our values. It's the same as shapes. X layer can take multiple fills, a stroke, and an effect. That is exactly the same. Lastly, we took a look at the V tool earlier, but we didn't take a look at how to select and navigate or move things around really. If you click and drag, you can select multiple things at once, like many places, can also work from inside of a frame, not necessarily like outside. However, if you are inside of a frame already and hovering something and its border is blue, if you click and drag, it's going to drag the element directly. Just know that. One last thing about selection. If you are inside of a frame and you want to select everything inside but not the frame itself, you can do select something and do Command A or Control A to select everything inside of any frame. Or if you have nothing selected and you do Control A, it will select all the frames available in the canvas. You can also decide to just select the main frame, press Enter to dive in the content. And then if you're here, you can press Enter directly to edit the text for text layers. Last thing about shapes, if you press Enter on them, you will access the node or vector modification. Meaning, right now, if I take this node and move it, I now not have a rectangle, but I have a shape. From what I said earlier, the elements in the layer list are going to take the shape of what they are. So as you can see here, my rectangle, which is not a rectangle anymore, or my ellipse, which is now a donut chart, they are represented the same way as their mini icons. As soon as we have way too much complexity in there, there will be a bit of a change of icon, but most of the time for simplistic shapes, you will see the same in the layer list. And so once you're here, you can 100% resize element. If you don't click the Shift key, it's going to be broken. If you use the Shift key, it's keeping its aspect ratio. Then you can have, by using this arrow, which is in the corner, specifically in all the corners, but like all these corners will give you the access to the rotation. You have access to the rotation right here in your properties. But that is for everything. Let's put everything together and create a very simple app header with everything we just learned. Let's create a new frame by clicking F. Then create a rectangle that goes across the frame. We'll make sure that it touches the top edge and the left edge and extend it to reach the other side. By doing so, you can see that my constraints are currently set to only left and top. I want this to be left plus right. You can give a color to that element. So let's choose something that is whatever you want. And let's add maybe an effect, a shadow, drop shadow right here. Let's do something at 16, a blur of 16, and a color, which is going to take with the eyedropper, same color as here, bit darker, and we'll change the opacity to 40%. Now that we have this, we'll create a small circle, but then in the top right corner, let's center it to the frame. I can see that it's almost good. Put it in white as if it was a profile picture. Let's ensure that it is linked to the right side, top right. And now we have a responsive header that will resize to its content. Very simple, but you have created your first design using the basic tools. Congrats. So as you become more familiar with these tools, you'll be able to create increasingly complex designs. Today, we've explored the fundamental tools of Figma that will serve as the foundation for all of your design works. Frames can create containers or divs for all of your designs. You can enclose them together. Shapes to create elements and visuals, text for typography, obviously, and then anything of effects to bring more life to your designs. These basics might seem simple at first, but they are incredibly powerful when combined together. Every complex design in Figma is ultimately built from these foundational elements. In our next video, we'll explore color and styles, specifically styles and variables in Figma to build like a consistent and professional looking design. As always, if you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe for the entire Figma Bootcamp. If you want early access to these videos and the design files and other resources, join the Patreon and we'll see you all in the next one. Bye.